Super Mario Brothers. I mean, what can I say about this game that hasn't been said already? I'm likely not telling you anything new that this game has stood the test of time for 40 years and will likely continue to stand the test of time for another 40 years. Super Mario Bros. Captured the hearts and minds of millions of people in 1985, and still to this day is captivating many gamers, young and old. And I'm no exception. Perhaps I'm jumping the gun here a bit and spoiling my overall thoughts on the game, but Super Mario Bros. Is often considered one of, if not the most important video game ever released. The impact this game had on the industry cannot be understated. And because of that, Mario would be the gateway for millions of people to enjoy the wonderful world of video games. Now, I might have been born several years after this game came out, but I think that applies to me all the same. Now, I wouldn't end up playing Super Mario Bros. For the first time until I had downloaded the game on my Wii in the late 2000s, but the first video game I ever played was Mario Kart Super Circuit for the Game Boy Advance. Of course, I'll end up making a video about this game one day, as it means a lot to me, but this is where my adventures with Mario started, and since playing this game, I haven't missed a single one of the plumber's adventures. From Super Mario Sunshine to Galaxy to Mario Kart, Mario Party, Mario Sports, I've been a big fan of Super Mario for basically my entire life, and all of those adventures stem from this game. So maybe I'm not bringing anything new to the conversation, but I still wanted to celebrate the beginnings of the character that got me into gaming in the first place. So, without further ado, let's go! After the release of Mario Bros. In arcades, aside from a few Game & Watch games starring Mario, like Mario Cement Factory, check out my video on that game by the way, wink wink nudge nudge, Shigeru Miyamoto would step away from Mario for a bit while he would continue developing games for Nintendo like Devil World, Excitebike, and Kung Fu. While working on these games, Miyamoto had the idea of expanding on the platformer genre that he had more or less created with Donkey Kong and Mario Bros. By making a platformer that was more colorful and featured larger sprites. Shigeru Miyamoto and his team, now joined by Takashi Tezuka, would put all of these ideas together, leaning on all the programming knowledge they acquired from developing the previously mentioned Famicom games, and thus, Super Mario Bros. Was born. Super Mario Bros. Takes place in the fictitious Mushroom Kingdom. The evil King of the Koopas, Bowser, has kidnapped Princess Toadstool, and it's up to Mario and Luigi to travel through 8 worlds and rescue the princess from his clutches. I hope you're prepared to hear that plot synopsis several more times as we look at more Mario games in the future. Sure, Mario games may not exactly be strong plot-wise, but I'll gladly take a game with a by-the-numbers plot, as long as it delivers on every other front, especially the gameplay. And Super Mario Bros.? It definitely delivers. Unlike the arcade game, Super Mario Bros. Has the brothers traveling from one end of the stage through various enemies and platforming obstacles to reach the flagpole at the end of the level. You travel through 8 worlds, each with 4 levels. Levels look rather blocky, for lack of a better term, but I think they definitely nailed the more colorful aesthetic they were going for. Mario will quickly find himself jumping through all sorts of terrains, keeping the game varied and interesting throughout. You got your standard overworld levels, you go underground, to the sky, levels during the day, levels during the night, you jump along treetops and giant mushrooms, you have large bridges, you go underwater, there's castles. The game definitely has variety, more than it may seem at first. I also appreciate how these different level themes aren't just for aesthetics, but also give you a clue as to the kinds of challenges you'll face in the level. For example, levels that take place on the treetops are often filled with precarious platforms and bottomless pits, whereas castle levels are filled with all kinds of obstacles to stop you in your tracks from reaching the boss at the end. This kind of theming with the level design is consistent throughout the entire game, and to see this sort of subtle communication in an NES game is pretty cool. Let's dive into the level design a little deeper though. Across each level in the game, you'll find several bricks and a few question mark blocks. Jumping from under these blocks can sometimes contain power-ups or items that'll help you along in your adventures. Question mark blocks will often contain coins, or better yet, a power-up for Mario to use like the Super Mushroom or the Fire Flower. The Super Mushroom will allow Mario to grow in size and let him take an additional hit before losing a life. Beyond that, you can get the Fire Flower. I love this power-up in this game. Not only does it give Mario a spiffy set of white overalls, but it also allows him to shoot fire from his hands, which can be a great way of dealing with enemies from afar. Of course, you'll still have to practice good and careful play, as getting hit just once with either power-up will return Mario to his small size, where he'll lose a life if he takes a single hit, so be careful. The brick blocks, on the other hand, often have nothing in them, but can be broken while you have a power-up. On occasion, though, they can sometimes contain a secret power-up like the 1-Up Mushroom, that will give you an extra life for collecting it, or a Starman, which can temporarily make Mario invincible and also gives us this great tune. unassuming brick blocks can also contain a vine that'll grow towards the sky, leading you to a secret bonus room where you can score a ton of coins. There are even bonus rooms underground, accessible through specific pipes you come across during the level. Be sure to take advantage of these when you find them, as you'll earn an extra life when collecting 100 coins, which is not only helpful, but also pretty satisfying. There's more to the game than just making tight jumps on platforms of varying sizes. This game has its fair share of enemies for you to overcome as well. The first enemy you'll run into is the Humble Goomba. All these guys do is walk side to side, changing directions whenever they hit a wall. They go down in one stomp and are pretty easy to avoid. They're the first enemy you see for a reason. Later on, you'll start running into Koopa Troopas. Stomping on these guys retracts them into their shell that you can then kick at other enemies. Just be careful with this, as the shell can damage you while it's sliding around. More often than not, I actually find myself kicking them off screen so I don't have to deal with it. There's also Buzzy Beetles, which are immune to the Fire Flower power-up. Let's see, what else? You got Piranha Plants. These guys will periodically appear out of the pipes, but can be pretty easy to avoid, as they don't attack while you're on top or near their pipe for some reason. You got Lakitu, that flies above your head and tries to drop spinies on you, essentially spiked turtles that you can't jump on. Bullet Bills that fire out of these cannons, Cheep Cheeps in the ever-annoying bloopers in the underwater stages, Potaboos, Fire Bars in the castle stages, and... Hammer Brothers. My god, the Hammer Brothers. Easily my least favorite enemy to run into in any Mario game, especially this game. They jitter left and right, they can jump up and down from platforms, and they throw an obnoxious number of hammers at the player that can be nearly impossible to avoid. If I know a level has one of these guys, I do what I can to just run past them, as trying to jump on them almost always ends in death, as their hammers spawn right above their head. Fucking jerks. Anyway, there's also Bowser. At the end of each world comes a boss fight with the King of Koopas himself. Early on, he sort of just stomps around and shoots fire at you, but in later worlds he'll start throwing hammers at you. Defeating Bowser requires either jumping over him or running under him to reach the axe at the end of the stage. Doing so will cause the bridge to collapse from under him, sending him into the abyss below. If you happen to have the Fire Flower, you can also just pelt him with fireballs until he decides to fall over. After defeating Bowser, we can at least relish in the success of rescuing the prince... oh. Yeah, you aren't actually defeating Bowser in Worlds 1 through 7, but rather a Bowser clone, where Toad will then tell you that the princess is in another castle, which might be kind of annoying depending on how comfortable you are with the game. Super Mario Bros. Does not have a save feature or even a password feature, so you're expected to be able to clear the game in one sitting. I guess unless you decide to leave the NES on overnight and come back to it, but you know what I mean. The game starts you off with 3 lives, and while you can earn more, once you lose all of them, it's back to the beginning of the game with you. Sound daunting? Don't worry, it's not as bad as it may seem, as there are some tricks you can do to make the journey a bit easier on yourself. Probably one of the most well-known tricks is the 1-up trick, where jumping on enemies enough times without touching the floor can net you an extra 1-up. This trick is most commonly performed with this Koopa on 3-1, but there are other places you can do it as well. I'm pretty awful at pulling this trick off myself, but I managed to pull it off eventually, and it was pretty awesome. Even if you don't do this trick and end up running out of lives, getting back to where you were is pretty easy thanks to the rare warp zones. If you know where to look, you can find special areas in certain levels that can warp you to other worlds instantly. If you can find the right ones, you could even get to World 8 and beat the game in about 5 minutes, no joke. Last but not least, there's also the continue secret. After you lose all of your lives, if you hold down the A button while pressing start to start a new game, you'll start at the beginning of the world you died in instead of the beginning of the game. These tricks can definitely make your adventure through the Mushroom Kingdom much more bearable if you're having trouble. Not that I think the game is insanely difficult or anything like that. As an older game, it might catch you off guard here and there, but for the most part, it's not too bad. Levels scale in difficulty quite naturally in this game, and the earlier levels do a great job of helping you get a feel for how the game works, whether you're a platforming veteran or a newbie. Although World 8-3 and its 7 Hammer Brothers can suck it. If you can believe it, Mario actually controls quite well in this game. Sure, he may feel a little more stiff in this game than he does in the newer games, but it shouldn't take too long to get used to, especially since you can influence Mario's direction in midair in this game, unlike Mario Bros. Arcade. Again, it's not as graceful as the newer games, but I promise it won't take long for you to get a hang of things. And let me tell you, once you're really comfortable with this game and you're able to run through the levels as fast as you can in one fell swoop, it's one of the most satisfying feelings I've ever had in a Mario game. This has always been my favorite thing about 2D Mario games, and just platformers in general. Mastering the game to where you're holding down the run button and making all the right jumps at the right time and reacting appropriately if things don't go according to plan. I absolutely love that feeling in platformers, and I was delighted to have that feeling playing through Mario's first adventure. After finally defeating Bowser in World 8-4, you beat the game and rescue the princess, where you're rewarded with a second, harder quest and also the ability to select which world you start in at the title screen. The second quest isn't really anything to write home about, it just replaces all Goombas with Buzzy Beetles and apparently makes some platforms a bit smaller as well. Now you may not think it to complete the second quest, but to be honest, I personally recommend it. Not because completing it gives you any cool rewards or anything like that, but rather because I think Super Mario Bros. Is one of those games where you learn to appreciate it more and more on subsequent playthroughs. I had a good time playing and beating Super Mario Bros., but when I decided to give the game another go for the second quest and beat it again, I didn't just have a good time. I had a fantastic time. Perhaps I had just gotten used to how the game played at this point, or maybe I had memorized enough of the levels to understand how to avoid upcoming obstacles, but regardless of such, it was so much more fun the second time around. Despite being the same levels with the same obstacles in the same order every time, the game is still super replayable and super fun just to blast through again and again. The metaphorical cherry on top of this absolutely incredible game is its soundtrack composed by Koji Kondo, and do I even need to say anything? See, I don't even need to play the rest of the song. You're already humming the rest of it, and you will be for the rest of the day, and I'm not sorry about it. But no, on a serious note, it's one of the most iconic video game soundtracks of all time. It's simple, but it adds a fun and whimsical feeling to the game, and it's so damn catchy, too. Now, real quick before I end off this video, let's pivot just a little bit to talk about Versus Super Mario Bros. This is a version of Super Mario Bros. That was adapted to an arcade format in 1986. Weirdly enough, this version of the game apparently wouldn't see a release in Japan, but most other regions got it. How odd. Anyway, it's Super Mario Bros., but for an arcade system. Some of the level design has been altered ever so slightly, so don't expect to be able to run through this game the same way you do the NES game. I was surprised seeing a few of the changes in the levels that caught me off guard, which sort of means, so thanks for that, guys. Some levels go beyond minor changes and are full-stop brand new levels and... oh shit. These are from the Lost Levels. I was not expecting that. We ended up getting a taste of that game here in America after all. Anyway, kinda weird, but if you want a slightly different spin on the adventure, you at least have an option with this version. Admittedly, there isn't much reason to play this over the NES game unless you just want to shake things up. I decided to look at it since, thanks to Game Galaxy, the same arcade I mentioned in the last video, I have the ability to play this game on an actual arcade machine. If you're curious and want to try it out yourself though, it is available on the Switch eShop as part of the Arcade Archive series, and honestly, I'd recommend that version so you can use an actual controller. Playing Versus Super Mario Bros. On actual arcade hardware is great and all, but this button setup does murder on my hands since I'm the type of guy that never takes his thumb off the run button. Playing this way genuinely kinda hurt my hand. I hope I've been able to show you all just why this game is so beloved, even 40 years later. To be honest with you all, I kinda had a hard time writing this script because like I said at the beginning of the video, it's freaking Super Mario Bros. I'm likely singing the same tune as countless other people here on the internet, but if anything, I think that just goes to show that Super Mario Bros. Is well worth the praise it's received for the last 40 years, and whatever praise it'll receive for the foreseeable future. Nintendo has done a fantastic job on innovating and expanding what Mario is capable of in later releases, and I wouldn't blame anyone that would just rather play the newer games, but if you haven't at least sampled Super Mario Bros. In its original form yet, I implore you to please give it a go. Not only is it a historical landmark in all of video games, but even to this very day, it's still incredibly fun and worth every second you decide to spend with it. It's available pretty much everywhere at this point. Nintendo has not been shy about re-releasing this game as many times as they possibly can. Whether you play it on Nintendo Switch, Wii or Wii U Virtual Console, the NES Mini, or hell, even on original hardware, I know you'll be in for a good time. With that said, a game as successful as Super Mario Bros. Is bound to create a sequel, and sure enough, we would get one in... Son of a bitch!